Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Finally, after a victory, we're able to also record kind of quickly after the match. Still let our feelings sink in a day after. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo here with you, reminding you to subscribe and follow us at that Milan Pod on Twitter. Subscribe to us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe here on the YouTube channel. And tell us what you thought of Milan's. Sorry, Napoli almost conceded there as we have that off on the side. Tell us about what you thought on Milan's performance against Venezia, because that is what we are primarily here to talk about today. And Matt, dominant fashion, pretty much from minute 1 to 2. As I'll have the goals and the times that they were scored here. They got 4 goals within the first 30 minutes. We see Tijani Reijnders play at that number 10 position. We were speaking about it on the pod, on your spaces yesterday, and Loftus-Cheek slotted back in to the double pivot. Gabbia gets the nod over to Mori because there's Inter and Liverpool coming up this week. So, Matt, in general, just a quick review of your overall happiness for a victory and the first in the Paulo Fonseca era.
Yeah, you guys obviously can see me for those watching our video format. Just like some relief. Obviously, I think if you guys have been following our podcast previews the past some-odd weeks, whatever, with the previous games, you can see that I've been pretty negative, and rightfully so. Martino has been kind of giving his predictions as well, which have aligned with mine, and he actually had a pretty favorable win from Milan this week. I was going narrow 2-1. I was like, we're going to get it. It's not going to be pretty. And I was pleasantly surprised. I think we got an early goal. I knew it was going to come with a barrage of chances and opportunities, perhaps for Venezia, because we have every reason to believe it would have, right? With Milan having defensive issues, and some of these teams having no fear to go at Milan because they know their issues back there. And immediately, Teo Leao connect for the first goal. That kind of eased a little bit of the pressure, which was obviously mounting. The fans, were welcoming the team bus with enough of the excuses banner. I think it was pretty obvious that they were just disgusted as well, and they wanted to see a good performance today, and they got it, right? Or yesterday. We got 4 goals, as you mentioned, in the first 30 minutes, put this game to bed quickly. And I think at that point, heading into halftime, it was more of a conversation of, well, let's start looking forward to the Liverpool game, yes, but also, can we get a clean sheet? Can we keep this? And we nearly let it slip. There was a foul in the build-up to the 1 goal Venezia scored. Former Juventus player, I think he's on loan, I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not going to say it. Okay. He got a second yellow, and that was ruled out. So Milan did get the clean sheet. They did get the 4-0 win. Really, as a fan, based off the first 3 performances, I can't be too critical in our spaces, as you just mentioned, Martino, in the post-match. There were people that were the one guy was very frustrated. He was like, it wasn't a great this. And I was like, look, 4-0 clean sheet at home. We need some positivity. I'm not going to sit here and split hairs. Take the win. You hope you build from it. But then finally, to Ali's final point, and then I think he made a great one, was, it's a good result, but it's not going to give us a clear indicator of how the Liverpool and Inter games might shape up for us. It's one of those, you take your 3 points, it's a win in the win column, it's a morale booster in the short term, and you hope that it's a launching off point for the next games to come, and that's kind of my sentiments as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you get to see a couple of players finally step up on a larger scale. Obviously, Teo been struggling for the start of the season. That was obviously his best performance so far, getting that impact nearly in the first minute. The link-up play with him and Teo, him and Leao was fantastic. So again, I mean, you just have to beat these opponents, and the margin of victory was great. Not conceding was great. But not conceding doesn't also tell a story of great defensive prowess or great balance. I think there's a lot of moments in that match, especially even in the first half. Those defensive breakdowns are more of a disaster against better sides with better attacking players. So Milan were really fortunate to not concede in general, let alone a couple of goals. So for me, more annoyed about the selection of Loftus-Cheek as the number 6. We talked about that again on Spaces. And to me, this is where the Bennacer injury devastates in more ways than one, because you basically are forced to play Loftus-Cheek. if you're forcing yourself to use this formation, which we consistently say is still not the best. I forget what other major commentator was mentioning that they should switch to the 4-3-3. Everybody's pretty much on board with that. Almost every single podcast, majority of fans. Listen, and I said this in the spaces as well, that if I were to see Loftus-Cheek starting, and if it's in a 4-2-3-1, I'd rather him and Reijnders switch. And meaning Loftus-Cheek go to the 6, Reijnders go to the 10. He looked so much better. So much better. It's just not even funny. Just the pressing, the movement. His technical ability is light years ahead of Loftus-Cheek, in my opinion. So yeah, for me, I thought it was a solid overall performance from the team. I'm not going to take away too much just because, there's still far greater opponents to be facing. And they're coming this week. So like a quick turnaround to Liverpool. I think the best part about this was being able to get on our players, scoring a lot of goals. Like this was textbook on how you want something to go during a European week over the weekend against an inferior side. Come out, you dominate, you get 4 goals within the first 30 minutes. You're able to sub off your key players and stars around 60th minute or so. I think Pulisic stayed on a little bit longer than we would have liked. But, I mean, again, just winning those 2 penalties was great. Tammy did a great job. Just in general, I know you were praising his overall performance, and we'll get to that too. But just him winning that penalty, Pulisic scoring his, Leao assisting. I think Tammy Abraham was the one who made the quote about Leao was the one who wanted Tammy to score that penalty. So much for Leao being a terrible teammate, right? Unbelievable where that's coming from. And then again, like just to see Theo play well, I think that's just overall the best thing. I want to get into Reijnders and playing in this position a little bit further for you. Is he married to this 10 spot now? I mean, like after that performance they just had, regardless of opponent, do you think Fonseca is making this switch and are we seeing him at the 10 and it's Loftus-Cheek and Fofana in that double pivot come Tuesday?
It's difficult to say because I think that, if you've been following the first 4 match days, you would know that Fonseca has been moving players around, a ton, whether it be due to injuries, whether it be due to, lack of good performance, right? I mean, we've seen how many players have played in the fullback positions. It's Emerson, it's Calabria, it's Terracciano, it's Theo, like Salamakers, right? Like so many guys have been moving around. And now you have the Ismail Benacer injury, which we all know the status of that. It's going to be months. So now it's Fonseca at least has an understanding of like, hey, like these are the guys I have at my disposal. There's no, I might have Benacer, I might not. In this match, we did have Malik Chow and Davide Calabria who were picking up injuries. So it kind of depends on defensively, at least, we'll talk about, the situation long-term, what's the best pairing for us. But I think that, Fonseca, it's 4 match days in, and I think he's still trying to understand his players well enough. I mean, we have to understand the fact that Tijani and some of these other individuals that were serving international duties at Euro, Copa America, whatever, they came in late. Tijani came in late. Rafa came in late. So I think there's still that sort of trying to grasp in real time in meaningful games, not just training, where players will slot in best. And I think as we saw in the game against Venezia, again, we can't put too much stock into it. But I think we touched on this at length with Jad as well before the Lazio game about Tijani and moving forward where we think he fits best. And I think based on his technical ability, his impact, we feel though that maybe the 10 is the best for him. I actually had him playing in a double pivot in this game, but we did get our wish. So I think going forward, there's a good chance that maybe Fonseca saw enough from this match and he goes, hey, you know what? Let's rock with something. Let's stick to a game plan, an 11 that we know is repeatable, that can get us some semblance of consistency on the pitch. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see Tijani, maybe not in the Liverpool game. I don't know how he's going to juggle minutes, but in that derby, maybe he does go Tijani and he goes with a more like rugged, defensive-minded, possession-based double pivot with Fofana and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. So
I think the derby will be bad, but we'll wait to get to that.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because his strength and weakness, Fonseca, so far has been one, his inconsistency with a starting 11, but also the strength is the quick hook and the decisions of maybe Loftus-Cheek was a little bit longer than most of us would have liked, but The overall point being, okay, you're not good enough. You're sitting. Oh, you're not working out in this position. Let's change it around a little bit.
Yeah.
Because then we see Okafor come on as a left winger. They even at one point had Tammy and Morata on at the same
4-4-2.
time. It's just interesting to sort of see that dynamic. He had no choice with Emerson Royale. Florenzi hurt. Jimenez was with the Futuro team, and then obviously Calabria was out. Royale was generally unimpressive yet again. So not trying to rip on the player any further than that. But Tijani is just clearly, we tweeted out the video with Jad. We mentioned it with Jad in the episode. We've been saying it for a while now. This is your most well-rounded midfielder. And when you're going into a formation like this, you're better off using him in this position. So again, I think Reijnders more so throughout the rest of the season, you will see him more than likely not play this position. We'll see how it comes with Voss and some of these other players, but there's a lot to get to with this. So another player that we were very happy to see shine, and he has really shined since he's returned in January, is Matty Cage, as Fikayo Tomori commented on his Instagram post. Initially was rewarded the second goal of the match, but it went to Yusuf Fofana. Him and Tammy Abraham, just real quick, became they are on the score sheet for the first time with Milan, and if you didn't know, they passed Charles de Ketelaere on the all-time Milan scoring list. So just to historically refer to how great of an accomplishment that is for those two players. But yeah, I mean, Gabbia again, and people were kind of getting annoyed at me, and this is why like Twitter is so annoying now, is they're saying Gabbia coming through after a loan, coming back drastically improved. He's so reliable now. I know the opponent's not great. He's not the most dominant of players. I have no concerns when he gets a nod starting. It really would largely depend on the opponent. Like, I think anyone against Inter would scare me at this point because it's not on that level. But Gabbia in matches like this, where a couple years ago, and I'm sure you would agree with this too, you were kind of a little worried. You thought there's like some shakiness with him. His positioning is sort of off. There wasn't that much confidence, but it's kind of seemed like there was a player there. Now we know this is a true professional. This is someone, in my opinion, that should be playing for the club for years. This is the perfect type of guy that you want. He's never going to have that much money because I don't think his ceiling is incredibly high as a player, but I think he's going to be an incredibly reliable Serie A player. Who's a fine athlete. He's nothing extraordinary, but still definitely good enough to play at this level. His technical ability, I find to be generally underrated. And even if he didn't get credited with the goal, Matt, he actually finds himself in positions quite often to score. We saw him get on the score sheet against Zagreb a couple years ago in the Champions League. He just always kind of finds himself in the right positions these days. And I'm really happy with his growth. I'm really happy Fonseca rewarded him with this start. We thought he maybe would have gotten that against a Parma or even a Torino because Pavlovic was sort of thrown in there in the match against Parma, as we know. So again, to sort of see him come in and you can give Fikayo Tomori a break, I think this was huge and largely a better indicator of why players going out on loan and getting minutes to develop is incredibly important. And Gabbia shines in that sort of situation here. So what did you think of his performance and the continuation of his growth?
Steady. I mean, I think, we've been looking for that other player through these first, group of games to play alongside Pavlovic, who I mentioned on Spaces has basically earned his starting spot, right? And I think he's done it very quickly because of, the inconsistencies of Malik Chow and Fikayo Tomori still not quite there to the level he was, a couple of years ago when he was at his best with us. And, obviously when you have, him and Gabbia, I think that you maybe have something there. Now, again, I think it's not one of those things where you have maybe to play the high enough line as you would like in certain matches. But I think that you kind of look and it's like, okay, let's get back to basics. Like, can we just defend our box? Can we mark our guys? Can we be in the right positions? Can we clear the ball with our head and do all the basics in certain matches like that? I think that's kind of where like Milan need to simplify things and say, hey, like we're not going to be able to play this sort of elaborate, crazy system, at least right now. let's get back to basics. Let's prevent goals. We'll figure it out. But I think right now, when you look at Pavlovic, the way he plays with his positional awareness and sort of understanding where to be, he's not taking those rash decisions to go at players and to put himself in vulnerable positions to get booked. He looks very composed, very smart in what he's doing. And I think, what we saw yesterday with him and Gabbia, again, before people get in the comments and say, it's Venezia, guys, like, why are we blowing this out of proportion? I think it's one of those things where you say, you look, you know what, you try to take a positive from it. And if Gabbia and Pavlovic is the pairing that going forward is going to give you the most assurance and confidence, then so be it. I mean, I'm fine with it. I think that, Fikayo Tomori specifically, more so in Malek Chap, because he's still like an unproven commodity. We've seen enough of Tomori to know that he is a very good defender when he is going right. I think Tomori is a professional. If he sees that Gabbia and Pavlovic are the starting, CBs for this team, he has the wherewithal and the understanding of the role of the sport, and has the kind of the ability to say, I got to play better. My role isn't guaranteed. This coach is not going to just throw me in there just because of my name. And I think that that's kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, I just want to get results. I just want to play consistent football and see this team, be a little bit more balanced. And I think that's what Gabbia provides right now. I think you make a great point. His ceiling is not going to be astronomical, but I think that can he be a defender that you throw into a game against Venezia in certain matches? And it's not just a hope and a prayer. He's going to do a good job for us. He's been with the club. He knows the weight of the shirt. He knows what his role is, and he's not going to deviate too much. He's going to do the simple things well, and he's not going to wow us with these crazy clearances and chasing down players, but he's going to defend his box. And I think that's what we saw, since he's returned to the club.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's always good to take away these positives, and don't forget, longer year, bigger schedule, really, too.
Yeah.
He has a couple more Champions League matches as opposed to not, and that's even prior to getting to knockout stages if they reach it that far. These guys are going to have to get minutes. I think we are kind of fairly thin at center back overall. Even if everyone is healthy, you're really just looking at 4 guys. And then emergency players, sort of like Bartezaghi. But for me, again, Gabbia Shining was huge. And then the other point with it was just the stars getting the rest. And, that is correlated with Gabbia getting that start. Tomori got to sit. We eventually saw substitutes. I think it's getting more frustrating for me not seeing Jimenez get called up, because you still wonder who that deputy for Teo is. Because God forbid, knock on wood. And again, we got to see Kevin Zeroli get some more minutes, which is just, it makes so many people's hearts full just to see that sort of player just get on the pitch. And, he looked a lot more confident. He was a lot more active in this one. And for me, I think ultimately it was, I know it's not the greatest of players, but I genuinely am happy when we can have someone like Leao come off and you have a quality player in like Morata and Okafor coming on. And to me, that's just awesome. That, again, Milan's depth and attack is a real positive for this team. I know they didn't score in the second half. They could have. There's different reasons for why and why not, right?
Foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not trying to go pedal to the metal when you're up 4-0. And the other team is just like they were trying to get a consolation goal. It's not even like Venezia where anything.
And it got physical too. Like you started.
It was. Yeah. Even Loftus-Cheek, that was like in the second half, they called him for a foul right outside the box where it was like almost like a handball. Loftus-Cheek didn't even foul anybody. I mean, I know you tweeted out in kind of like frustration as well. Like we're seeing stomping on by players and stuff like that. To me, I think this was just everything that you could have wanted from this match. I'm sorry, like I got a dominant win. We beat up on a crap team. We're seeing Roma still yet to have a win. They drew this morning against Genoa. So like you got and Juve dropped points on Empoli too. So hey, listen, Milan gained 2 points up on a couple of teams. Inter play Monza. So like listen, Inter's Inter, guys. Like Inter's another level. So for me, I know that like people are gonna misconstrue and conflate my expectations with the team as opposed to where I want them to be. And again, I have to reiterate this because too many people do not understand this. and most of you guys who listen to us are great, and you get where I'm coming from, and Matt too. I don't expect this team to win the title. However, I expect them and hope for them to finish in top 4. So when we have sort of results like this happening where Milan have to win these games against these sides, you get the 2 points. Juve and Roma dropping points against what is deemed to be relative inferior sides in Genoa and Empoli. It's a plus for Milan. It just is. There's no denying it. You guys can smile. You can be happy about it. And the funnier thing is, Matt, when we have someone like Tammy Abraham playing well, we have people, despite the fact that he's winning a penalty, scoring a penalty, and overall play is great, got the assist against Lazio, they're still bitching that they didn't get him in full. This fan base is so fickle and so funny to me that you can't even enjoy a player like this. And who's to say they can't renegotiate in the summer if the player's desire is to go play for Milan? There's another year left off of his contract. Who's to say if they don't like Salome? Like, guys, enjoy it. He's here now. He's playing well, and he's going to be key. Like, seriously, him and Morata, and again, another thing we talked on Spaces, because it's just funny because we both thought the same thing. This is the best striker depth they've had since ancient Zlatan and Giroud. And even then, in my opinion, I think it's better. I think you got to go back to, again, those Zlatan teams where, like they had the depth. It was really like him and Pato as strikers.
And then like an aging Inzaghi.
Like it was a different dynamic there in the way that they were playing. They didn't always play with the true out and out striker with those teams. Sometimes like Pato and Zlatan would play off of each other. Jeez, man, we're so old. That was so long ago. But truthfully, like this is only a good thing. Like Milan have reliable goal scorers now. It's really just buttoning up defensively, and they have the talent to do so. It's their style that frustrates you. But when you see Tammy linking up well, pressing well, having good finishing ability, like almost everything that he is doing, it's a robbery of a deal for Milan. Like Milan won that loan swap. Like he's got 2 goal contributions already. And he hasn't even played like 150 minutes, 130 minutes.
For our basic, we swapped him. We got Tammy Abraham with, you mentioned the goal contribution so far for basically our 3rd choice right winger.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that, it was difficult for me when, when we were doing Spaces yesterday and just regular discussion, on Twitter. And then my comments were people saying, oh, like, why couldn't we get Tammy on of this? I'm like, guys, just like pump the brakes. Like, can we enjoy the fact that we got to win? Like for one day, it's always something with many fans. And I understand like everyone wants to raise the bar. Everyone wants, the player of their dreams for the fee. That's right. For the like they want to win everything. And I get it. Like, fine. The summer was frustrating, but the games have impact. The games mean everything. That's the most important thing right now. Whatever happens in June, I don't care about that right now. I want to see this team win. And if Tammy is going to put performances on the pitch like he did yesterday and against Lazio in very limited minutes when he came on and was an instant impact, I'm fine with it. And I think it gives you the luxury of playing, maybe down the road we play with 2 strikers. Maybe we do a 4-4-2, right? Which was something that we saw sparingly. But again, the game didn't call for them to be so heavily involved.
But that's where Fonseca's pretty good experimentally.
Yeah,
right?
he's like, all right, 4-0, take everybody off. Morata, Abraham, like this is real game time that I can get a barometer of how these players can coexist. And just getting back to Tammy, and then we'll keep it pushing. I think that Tammy so far has shown a really good understanding of what his role is within this team. And we've seen it as a sub in the Lazio game, assist. And now we've seen it as a starter in very limited time, guys. He arrived on deadline day. So this isn't a player that we've had since the early weeks of the market. It's a player that's come in and has immediately settled at a pretty good level so far, where he's not only just looking good, right? Oh, he's doing this. He's getting goal contributions. And I know it's a penalty. People are going to say that. But the fact that he earned a penalty, scored a penalty, and his overall involvement in play is refreshing to see so far. And given how, difficult it's been the first couple games, he's immediately looking for the runners in behind. He's getting the ball and he's looking to move with it. I think that is the type of play we want to see. And through these first couple games, like the attack has been a positive. So if we're able to, again, the well-documented defensive issues, iron those out, I think that going forward, we're going to be a team that can put up, maybe not every match day, but more lopsided results like we had yesterday.
They are, yeah. They're going to score a lot. This is the second best offense in Serie A. Like even in their tough ones, they're getting 2 goals against Torino, 2 goals against
Pulisic too. Just real quick, just on Pulisic.
Yeah, go, keep going. Yeah,
the corner. I know we scored on the corner. It was given to Fofana. Pulisic gets the penalty. Pulisic is perfect from penalties for club and country.
He's so good. He's so good.
That is a little side note that I think is so big because last year we missed a decent amount of penalties. In the Champions League the year before, Giroud missing the penalty in the quarterfinal versus Napoli. We won the game, but we struggled from the penalty spot quite a bit. And look, those goals can sometimes decide matches and can be the difference between a loss, a draw, and then 3 points. So if you could have someone that and you could point to immediately, hey, that's our penalty taker. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you have the confidence when he steps up that he's going to convert. That's massive. And just to finally add on to that too, Pulisic had 16 goals and 10 assists last year in all competitions. If he's taking penalties, we're going to 20 goals this year. He's got 2 goals and an assist already this year.
Dude, he's a great player. I think he's found his home here at Milan. No real reason to leave. I think it's a perfect storm for a player like that. Higher profile. I think he's going to age great in the league. I think he has a viable backup. And like so many people are like, oh, we got to sell Chukwueze and like all this. And like people are off on the Chuk bandwagon. Like, listen, I want both. Like, why wouldn't you want both? Like, you guys are just annoying. Like that. Like
they want depth. They cry for depth that we have Macias and Alexis. We need depth. And now when you go, oh, this guy, when is he gonna play? We have 2
no offense to the fans like that. My point is you're clearly new. Relatively new. You did not see all the teams that had great stars on the bench. Like Real Madrid, okay, well, Brahim got hurt, so speedy recovery to him. He's out for like 3 months. But Brahim Diaz off the bench for Real Madrid was like a star. Rodrigo isn't a full-blown starter for Real Madrid. Like, these are highly capable players that can play in most teams in the Champions League and just the rest of the world, and yet they're playing second fiddle in their own squad. So Chukwueze, to me, another player where you can see him kind of shine over the course of, the next couple of months or so. And we'll wrap up here at the end because Inter and Liverpool are coming up. We're going to try and get our guy Fabio on, I think, for Tuesday for the Liverpool game. He said he was interested. We just got to recontact him for that. But we kind of already know barometer, litmus test wise where this club is at, right? Mm-hmm. Like they played some respectable opponents in Lazio, even Torino to an extent.
Yeah, Torino's been off to a good start.
And even Parma's been one of the best newly promoted sides in all of Europe. They struggle defensively. They really have issues. They've been getting burned on counterattacks. Liverpool yesterday, I was at work, obviously at Peacock, so I get to see all these games. Liverpool, despite scoreline with Forest yesterday, had plenty of opportunities. Mm-hmm. Really poor finishing, really weak finishing. The way Milan plays and have been playing, it's scary going against a side like Liverpool. Again, not necessarily the same as the one we played a couple years ago in the group stage. Made it to a Champions League final. Obviously lost to Real Madrid. There's no Jurgen Klopp here. Maybe there's a little bit more pressure for Arne Slot, considering that it is a Champions League match and it's at San Siro. So I think that is a huge factor into all of this. For me, Matt, any result in either of these games, and yes, I know I haven't gotten to the Derby quite yet. I just want to speak on a surface level, and we'll go in more depth later this week. If you get a result in either and or both, I think it's good. The last thing I expect is 2 wins. I think if they get 2 wins, their season's completely turned around. And I mean that absolutely. I think everyone would agree with it. I think you would agree with it. If Milan won the Derby alone, I think everybody would say the season's turned around. But again, for me with Liverpool, I'm kind of hoping where our form is at to get a draw. I think if Milan manage a draw on this one, it's a good result. I'm fine with it. It's one of the tougher opponents, obviously, because Leverkusen and Real Madrid are kind of in the distance. But this is a true test. This is one of the better teams around. I know they struggled, but still, man, like if you saw that Manchester United game, the way Liverpool are able to execute on the counter is devastating. Their wingers are their biggest strengths, and Milan's biggest weakness defensively, outside of the entire thing, are their fullbacks. So Luis Diaz, we saw him when he was with Porto. There's a strong chance he torches someone like Royale. Because I don't think Calabria is going to be a full recovery to start this one. Be a little surprised, but your sentiments going into Liverpool, and then if you want to quickly touch on the derby, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think just speaking on the Liverpool game real quick, I think that, we on this podcast are very realistic. I think we tell it like it is, and we express how we're feeling in that moment, right? I think that, obviously we want to win. This is what Milan, came back to the Champions League to do, is for these Champions League nights, yes, to compete, but to also show that they can win. And, we saw last year in the group stages, we had a tough group, and we outplayed PSG. And we gave our fans a great Champions League night. I think we're capable of doing it. I can't put, again, too much stock into the Venezia game. I'm hoping that from a morale standpoint, it's one of those, hey, guys, we got one. Like, just to see a win get in the column. It doesn't have to be the prettiest. It doesn't have to be perfect top to bottom. But to give the fans who are going to be traveling and going forward for a lot of these games, like, okay, like, we have some resolve. We can bounce back, and we can, when things get tough, get a result. And look, if we're able to get a draw against Liverpool, like, I'm taking that any day of the week. It's the Inter game that, like, selfishly, I want to win. Like, I know people are going to say draw, and like, oh, if we get a draw, I'd be happy with that. I'm like, I get it from like a like a league positioning standpoint and, like, results standpoint, yes, but like, man, I want to break the streak. It would be something. Wouldn't it be something if it's like Liverpool? It's like, even if the Liverpool game doesn't go great, but we play well, and it's like a 2-1 game, and we show some things, and it's like, all right, we get into that Inter game. And that's like the turning point of the season early on, where it's like the first game we put it all together and we do it against a strong opponent. That would be a really good statement from Fonseca and his Milan. So, like, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Derbies can be a little tricky, but maybe it's fresh blood in the form of Fonseca and a lot of these other players that, we've talked about it, right? We have a lot of new players from last year and obviously this year. Those first derbies for Pulisic and a lot of the others last year, maybe it's like, okay, we have experience in these derbies. Yeah. Now we have a little bit of an expectation as to how to go about playing against Inter, which, derbies used to tend to bring out the best in players, you'd hope. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I hope we get some positive results here.
And important to note, extra day of rest compared to Inter. We play on the 17th. They play on the 18th.
That's big.
We play against Liverpool. Inter, in case you guys don't know, play against Manchester City. So it's interesting. Both clubs have very difficult schedules. Obviously, with Inter, regardless of what happens against Manchester City, there's a lot of, I haven't really thought about it too much, but there's a lot of like mental emotion going into this week for Inter. I think they're very positive going into the derby, but there's also a team that they have to face that beat them in a Champions League final. I think that kind of weighs differently on a team. And I'm not saying like, oh yeah, Inter's finally going to lose now. What I am saying is, at certain times throughout his tenure with Inter, Inzaghi has had some inconsistency juggling multiple competitions. I think he's the best Italian manager right now. I think he's one of the 5 best managers on the planet. He's a star. He's amazing. I think a lot of where Inter is at is because of him. And I'm curious to see is how they play against City and how they carry that into that match. For Milan, it's sort of like there's still tons of pressure for both sides, but to me, it feels like more house money with Milan because the expectations are a little bit lower.
Yeah, I think that's Inter. Yeah, they've kind of reached that point over the past couple of years with like perennial favorites in Serie A. They made it to a Champions League final. They played really well in that final, came up short against.
Like they win Coppa Italia, they win Super.
I think it's kind of one of those things where they're like, I'm not saying that they're looking at the Derby as like, we got bigger fish to fry. Like, we'll beat these guys. Like, let's look to the City game. But I think, again, to your point, like, everyone and their mother is saying, like, even Milan fans are like, we can't beat Inter. We can't do this. And it's like, sometimes you like that. Sometimes you want to embrace that. How many times did we have that in a Scudetto winning season where we were like, if we can get a tie against Inter, we'll take it. And it's like, okay, we're looked down upon. People are saying
we say that as fans, though. We don't want the players thinking that.
No, of course. But again, I think that's kind of what the mindset. That's the mark of a good team, right? Like, and again, I credit Inter and Inzaghi for what they've done because they're so well drilled and they understand that like they're not going to switch off. Like certain teams might look to the City game and be like, that's the focus, and then all of a sudden you kind of drop a little bit of a dud. And I think that's kind of where Milan fell short. Like they would look great in the Champions League, the PSG game, and all of a sudden you're like, that's what they follow it up with in the league play on the weekend, like a lame 1-1 draw versus like a mid-table team. So I think that's kind of what's going to be a big focus this week is, the big games that these two teams, Milan and Inter, have in the Champions League midweek and how that sort of carries over into the Derby. So,
yeah. We'll see. I think it'll be a fascinating one. Will Milan lose a 7th consecutive derby?
Something's got to give, guys. Come on.
I don't know about this time, but in general, we're very excited about it. We're very excited about our future here with the podcast and how much support we've gotten from everybody. Again, subscribe and follow us at That Milan Pod on Twitter. Well, you can't subscribe on Twitter, but subscribe to us here again on the YouTube channel. Comment on what you thought against the match against Venezia. Comment on how you think Liverpool and the Derby are going to go. I'm sure they're going to be very positive. We appreciate all of your comments that come in. You guys have supported us so much over the years, and it's only going to continue to get better. And again, shout out to Kush, who always does a great job. I know he was doing a live watch along maybe yesterday. If not, he had a video up like almost immediately. He's a workhorse. And again, Badir went live yesterday. So it's funny to see Badir kind of just go through the roller coaster of emotions that person has on the Sempre Milan channel. So go and check out their podcast as well with Ali, Torgrud, and Maddie. MLM podcast with Maxi and Gino. They do a good job. Go check out our boy Jad, who is Barra Bravas, and go see the episode that we had him on for. Again, Old Hard Rossonero, Milan Weekly Podcast, Milan Coast to Coast. Just tons of great work out there and great Milanisti that you could always talk to. Again, Milan got 3 points. They move up in the table. And
enjoy it, guys.
And really, that's all that matters. Just enjoy today, tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens Tuesday. Any final thoughts, Matt, while I show people where they could follow you for the
on Twitter at Matt_Santangelo. I'll keep it brief. Thanks for the support on here, the YouTube channel. We're growing rapidly. It's all thanks to you guys. So keep sharing the episodes. Keep telling your Milan fans and Serie A fans about us. I feel like we're very, even though we're Milan fans and we talk strictly about Milan, I feel like we're very honest. And I think if people want to get an honest perspective of where Milan's at in a match or in a week or in a period, they can come to us. So again, thank you guys for the support. And we'll talk soon, of course, with the big matches coming up.
Yeah. And again, if you want to follow myself, we are on Instagram, by the way, too, at That Milan Podcast. Again, at Martino_Puccio on Instagram, TikTok. We also have a TikTok for That Milan Pod as well, where we upload pretty much all the same clips. But thank you guys so much and take care.